Wonderful. These are such fabulous answers. We're going to allow 2 more questions. So one and then one further if somebody wants to go on.
Hello, thank you for your talk first. And I'd like, so you have, one of the reasons is the gap between the poor and the poor and the richer, which is bigger and bigger. I'd like to ask a question in the middle for the middle class, for the famous rising middle class. Do you think that India will have the ability for demography, economic resources to absorb or incorporate this rising middle class? And if not, what about what will happen to all these frustrating middle class people who will be like, for example, over-educated or over-qualified? What about this frustration if it's not absorbed or incorporated?
No, that's a very fundamental question. That's a question that is important at various levels. If I understood your question correctly, at one level, it's a question about, which is a global question, whether the earth can sustain, whether the process of economic growth, even if it's successful, even if you have all the tribals becoming middle-class consumers like me, what the global environmental impact would be. That's one aspect of the question. The other aspect of the question is, and this links up to some of the previous comments, is that as the middle class grows, how does it see and conceptualize itself? There's worry among some sections of Indian opinion, a worry I share, that the middle class is walling itself off from the rest of society. So, if you go back to the Indian national movement, was sustained by the middle class, by an open-minded, democratic, progressive middle class. If you go back to the welfare state in Europe, that's what sustained it. It wasn't the poor who built and the disadvantaged who built the welfare state, but a thinking, conscious, conscientious middle class. So that's the second aspect of it. The third aspect of it, which is probably what you directly mean, is what happens when someone wants to join the middle class and can't. Now, I haven't talked, but that's again a very interesting and important question in India today. One of the aspects, worrying aspects of India today is violence. Of young men. It could be the Maoists are young men between 18 and 30. The religious extremists, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, whatever, are young men between 18 and 30. The linguistic chauvinists, the insurgents in the northeast, in Kashmir. There's also a lot of violence conflicted on oneself. I talked about agrarian distress. There's been a wave of farmer suicides in India over the last 15 or 20 years. And I think sociologically we haven't understood this. Because agrarian distress, deprivation, crop failure, indebtedness is endemic to Indian history. I mean, Professor Ashok Kotwal knows this much better than me. But in the past, farmers never killed themselves. Why are they killing themselves? They're killing themselves, I think, partly because the media tells them you're a loser. If you're not driving a fancy car, if you're not, in a pub, if you're not, so I think there are various aspects to this middle class question that we still are imperfectly understanding. So what we need, the first question is, can we really build a middle class of 1 billion Indians, or do we have to think, and this is why Gandhi becomes relevant, do we have to think of an alternate model of economic growth? This is much more sensitive to resource endowments. The second question is, the middle class that does exist, how can we make it more sensitive and alert to the problems and challenges within Indian society today? I mean, so I think these are very important questions that you've pointed to. Thank you.
And this last question, go ahead.
My name is Tabriz Siddiqui. I'm from the Department of Psychiatry. You mentioned the extremely unstable neighborhoods, and you talked about the budding civil society in Bangladesh. Do you think there is a budding civil society in Pakistan as well because of what we saw as a lawyers' movement? What can we Indians, or in particular Muslim Indians, do to normalize relations with Pakistan and Bangladesh?
Yeah, I will answer that question, a very important question, except that this is not only an obligation of Muslim Indians, it's on all of us, so I wouldn't want to, say that, it's on all of us. I think there is a civil society in Pakistan, but it's very fragile and small. There's also an outstanding press in Pakistan. In some ways, the press in Pakistan, because over many years of military rule and religious fundamentalism, the press has a voice of, it's like the Indian press under colonialism, It's progressive, it's emancipatory, it's brave. I mean, Pakistani editors are braver than Indian editors. Indian editors want to go to Davos and give speeches. The Pakistani editors are much braver. So that's part of the middle class. That's part of civil society. I mean, the lawyers' movement you mentioned, but it's very fragile. The problem with Pakistan is structural. Pakistan is a problem that has experienced a great deal of bad luck. And it's a long thing. I mean, I don't know, do I have 3 minutes to?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. It's a very interesting, complicated, I mean, because people have to be interested in why Pakistan and India are different. The Indian National Congress, which led to the birth of India, was a progressive democratic movement which had middle-class people from all over. The Muslim League, which created Pakistan, was the party of landlords and feudal elites, right? Then, when we became independent, we had a visionary leader, Nehru, who could lead us for 17 years. Pakistan had a terrible ill luck that their modern-minded leader, Jinnah, died within a year. Then Pakistan had the further bad luck that they became a frontline state in the Civil War and was seduced into an alliance with America. You know, there's a famous saying that Pakistan has 3 enemies, Allah, Akbar, and America. Right. Now, I think that Indians should think about that. Allah, the army, and America. Allah, the army, and America. Now, Indians should worry. Fortunately, the army is not there. Our version of Allah is Ram. We should keep him at a distance. And America also, we should not really cozy up to too much. We should be careful about that. Then you have had, the Afghanistan conflict. So Pakistan is in a very complex. So my sense is, historically, though I'm a great admirer of the Pakistani middle class or Pakistani civil society, I visited Pakistan several times. I visited Pakistan 6 weeks after the Mumbai terror attacks. To answer your question, to give a direct personal answer to your question, I got my visa from the Pakistani High Commissioner on the 24th of November. The terrorist attack took place on the 26th of November 2008. I got my visa from him personally. And I can tell you, unless he was a greater actor than Anthony Hopkins, he had no clue about what's happening. So the Pakistani state is not in control over what's going on. And the terror attack happened. I wanted to go to Lahore. I was uncertain, confused. My mother said, don't go. My friend said, don't go. My daughter said, you have to go. My daughter was 15. She said, Appa, this is really an answer to your question. I said, why must I go? And I was myself nervous. I mean, if you go back to living in India during that time, she said, Appa, you must tell them, not all of us hate all of them. And I went, and there were 12 people on the flight. And in Lahore, of course, the hotel staff were all over me because they were so grateful that the Indian had come. But the tragedy in Pakistan is, because of this accumulated baggage and history, civil society is very vulnerable. Indian civil society is much wider and far-flung. Outside sections of Lahore and Karachi, you can't find it. So, however much I admire them, I think they can't really redeem or restore Pakistani democracy.